In this lesson we'll learn about color tints, shades and tones. Alright, now in the previous lesson we took our color wheel and we broke that down into 12 segments of color. And that those 12 segments consisted of primary colors, secondary colors and tertiary colors. Now, I've got here a color wheel in front of me. It looks a little bit different than the previous lessons, but I wanted you to see what each of these colors look like next to its neighbor. So we've got this color wheel here with all those colors reflected. And we also talked in the last lesson about how any color that we see around us can be traced back to one of these 12 colors. Now let's just break down how that works. The first thing we need to talk about is a tint. A tint of one of these colors is going to add white to that color. Let me go and just hide this color wheel and I'll show you the effect of that. Alright, now I've added white each of these colors and some of these rings that move outside outward towards this last ring here. Now by adding white to these colors, it's going to desaturate them. It's going to reduce the amount of saturation. Now remember, saturation is how rich these colors are. If we for example were to look at the color that's existing here in this little space right here, that's sort of light pink. Now that's just derivative of our primary red, and all we've done to get that is we've added white to that. Now I've added wit into each of these rings in 20% increments. So we've got 20% here, 40%, 60% and 80%. Now I've done that just so we produce a nice even stepping visual here for the lesson. But you can really add any amount of white to one of these colors. So really there's a wide array of color options that are available to us just by adding white to one of these colors. Let's just go ahead and zoom in here and we'll take a look at the effect of a tint. Excuse me, the effect of adding white to these 12 segments. You can see that each of these rings is a little more desaturated than the one preceding it here. And that is a tint. Now we've talked about tints and adding white to our colors. Now you may be wondering what happens if add black. Now adding black to these colors actually creates what's called a shade. Let me go ahead and just change some of our layers around here. We go and keep a ring of our 12 segments just so we have something to compare to. And just moving inwards towards the center here. I've gone ahead and added some rings adding black. Now by doing this we are decreasing the value of our color. Now remember, value is how close a color is to white or to black. So by adding black, it's taking our colors closer to pure black. So again we've got 20% increments here, so 20, 40, 60 and 80%. And you can really see just in comparing the outer ring to the inner ring, there's a good deal of difference in value between the two. Alright, so up until now we've talked about tints and shades and adding either white or adding black to our colors. Now, one of them decreases the saturation and the other increases the value. Now it is possible to do both to decrease the saturation and increase the value. And that would actually be called a tone. Let me go ahead and switch over here to another document I've got. Now again we've got our 12 segments here, and we've got a nice gray circle here in the middle. Now to achieve tone we would not add white or black. We would actually add some form of gray to one of our 12 segments here. Now this gray in center just happens to be about a 60% gray. I thought that was good for an example here for you. And let's go ahead and just hide these and we'll just take a look at the effect of adding gray to our 12 segments. Go ahead and hide that and great, let's take a look here. Now I have added gray each one of our 12 segments here. And I've done this one in 30% increments just to show you a little more range between each step. So we've got 30%, we've got 60% and we've got 90% here. And you can see just by looking at these, we've got our fully saturated colors and with just one step in, the amount of saturation has been reduced and the value has increased. Or we've gotten a little closer to black. So in each step the saturation is decreasing just a little bit more and we're getting a little closer to black. So really we're thinking in terms of either adding black, adding white or adding gray to create tints, shades and tones of our colors here. Now depending on what percentage of each of these three colors we add is going to create just a really wide range of color options for us to choose from. So now you can see exactly how any color in the world around us can be traced back to these 12 steps on our color wheel. Now it can be kind of confusing at this point to look a color in our environment and pick out exactly whether it is a tint, a shade or tone, and exactly what color it goes back to. I'd like to encourage you at this point to just go ahead and pick out some colors of items in your environment around you and try and isolate just one color and practice tracing that back to one of these 12 segments a color wheel.